Hello, all my dear friends. This is Maxine Taylor, and I have the astrological forecast for the United States for the month of August 2024. And there's so much going on. I'm going to break it down according to the fast-moving planets and give everybody a heads up on what's coming down the road. Now, most of you are familiar with Mercury retrograde because Mercury is retrograde, and I'm going to tell you what this means for us. So instead of telling you what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to remind all of you that um, when we do a chart on a country, it's a mundane chart. It's very different than a birth chart. The houses are different. So if this is your first rodeo, uh, just hang in there because I will explain everything I'm saying. So let's start with, if you could see what all the paperwork on this on my lap. Okay, we're going to start with the sun. And the sun is the giver of life. And it has been in our third house. However, I'm looking right now. Today is the 9th. Please excuse the delay. Mercury is retrograde, and I know most of you understand what that means, on the 6th, the sun moved into the 4th house. Now, it's very interesting. The 4th house in a mundane chart, normally the 4th house is home, family, and real estate. And that is still what we're talking about here. But there's more to it. First of all, it rules the party out of power, and that would be the Republican Party. The party in power is the 10th house because the 10th house is the house of the president. And of course, we have a president who is a Democrat. So the sun is sitting in that 4th house. Let me tell you what that means. Besides being the party out of power, it's all domestic affairs, it's real estate, it's the weather too. And boy, have we had it, right? It rules land, it rules farmers, builders, crops, mines, and seniors. So this is the party out of power. And with the sun in the 4th house, there can be a growing energy on the part of the Republicans. Okay, now let's talk about the new moon and full moon. The new moon was the 4th of this month. And wherever the new moon falls, that is where the energy starts growing. It was in right on the cusp, the edge of the 4th house, which makes it even stronger. Anything on the cusp is more powerful. And it was in 27 Aquarius. And I'm going to look here to give you a little more emphasis. Okay. Oh, excuse me. That was the new moon. That was the new moon. Got it backwards. By the way, I will be your model for Mercury retrograde. Whenever Mercury's retrograde, we are confused. We trip over our words. We say one thing and then we correct it because that is the nature of Mercury. It's a communication planet. So the new moon was on the 4th house cusp, which activated the Republican Party. It's that simple. Now, the full moon will be the 19th. And of course, that falls in the 10th house of the party in power, which is, of course, the Democratic Party. The full moon will be on the 19th in 27 Aquarius. And this emphasizes the leadership of the Democratic Party. Very powerful, very exciting, and because it occurs at the very beginning of the Democratic convention, this is going to be a pop. Lots of explosive energies. And as I'm reading these two lunations, I'm thinking, I want to see more, if at all possible, more protection for those who are at this conference, more police protection. We all know that it's vitally important that that law enforcement be present to quell any issue that might come up. We know that. Now, let's talk about Mercury. Well, Mercury, of course, as I said, is retrograde. It will go direct on the 29th, and it will immediately move into the shadow of the retrograde until September 12th. I included the full cycle. When Mercury is retrograde, we do not begin new projects. Instead, we tie up the loose ends of unfinished projects. Mercury retrograde confuses, it shakes us up. We have an opportunity when Mercury is retrograde to tie up the loose ends of unfinished projects. Period. However, when we're dealing with politics, with conventions, political conventions, it's even more confused. And so my suggestion, again, more protection for the candidates and for the attendees. Very important. And with Mercury retrograde in the 4th house, this is the party out of power. And so they're rethinking, they're redoing, I'm talking about the Republican Party. And Mercury is going to be sitting in this 4th house, regrouping, tying up loose ends, probably because I don't think they expected the particular candidate that the Democrats are putting up for president. Okay, so confusion. We got that. All right, now. Venus. Let's start with Venus, the pink planet. Venus is love. Venus is money. Venus is love and money and beauty. And Venus is love. I think I made my point. This planet is sitting in the 4th house of the party out of power. And there is a blessing there because that's what Venus does. And there is an optimism, a joy, a happiness. On the 15th, Venus moves from the 4th house into the 5th house. And I'm going to read you what the 5th house in a mundane chart means. It deals with children, fun, sports, of course, gambling, theaters, the birth rate, public schools, congressional and public hearings, stadiums, teachers, but most of all, It deals with fun. Now, what's happening is, let me get organized here. Here we go. It is sitting on Neptune. Neptune, I always call it nebulous, nefarious Neptune. Neptune is wishful thinking. It is also the dream come true. And when we're talking about children and perhaps having the dream come true, this is a very loving aspect. And I was thinking, well, this could easily be children's rights, more emphasis on that, the right to be born, the right for women to select what they do in raising those children. So it's either a certain amount of wishful thinking, or it is the dream come true. So we're going to have to look at this. It is, Venus is on Neptune, right smack dab on it, on the 23rd, the last, I think that's the last day of the Democratic Convention. So we'll keep our eyes open. Now, this is very interesting. Mars and Jupiter. I'm going to read them together because they're both in Gemini. And when earlier this month, which wasn't all that long ago, Mars was sitting on the ascendant, and Mars on the ascendant fights for what it wants. It's explosive. And this occurred, I don't know the exact date. I didn't write it down, but this would occur when Kamala announced that she's not only running for president, or she chose her running mate. And moving forward on the 20th of the month during the convention, Mars is sitting on Mars. Passion is sitting on passion. Fighting, arguing. This is the tone of the people. In a mundane chart, the first house is not the physical body, but it is the attitude and political mood of the people. You might say, well, that looks like fighting. It could possibly be. However, with Jupiter, the greater benefic blessing that first house and the attitude, political attitude of the people, this brings optimism. And I stood back to see what all was going on. And I watched the news on different channels. And there has been such a change in the mood of the country, our beloved country, since Kamala announced that she was running for president. It was exciting. It was what apparently people were waiting for. And as we know, she raised a great deal of money within the first 24 hours, which speaks volumes. And so on the 20th, there is more passion. And I want to suggest to law enforcement that that convention might require a little more police protection, just a little bit. I'm not saying anything more than that. I'm not implying anything more than that, because Jupiter blesses us. Isn't that beautiful? So I, like everybody in this country, is going to be watching that election to see what happens. And I think that's pretty much what I came here to say. So after Mercury goes direct, and I'm going to go over those dates with you again. Mercury is retrograde right now, which is why everything is kerflooey. We do not start new projects. We tie up the loose ends of unfinished projects. Mercury goes direct. It comes out of retrograde on the 29th. Now, my suggestion is that all of us, I'm also including myself in this, tie up all loose ends. And I'm just looking around at all the paperwork I have sitting in my two offices. And I'm thinking, yes, it's time to straighten up and prepare for when Mercury goes direct. Now, when Mercury goes direct, it moves immediately into the shadow of the retrograde. It started out in the shadow before it went retrograde. And this is true of all the planets that go retrograde. There's a pre-retrograde shadow and a post-retrograde shadow. And the shadow ends September 12th. You can start a new project while Mercury is in the shadow, but it feels like Mercury is still so retrograde that you plan on getting a job done, and perhaps it doesn't work out that way. Be kind to yourself and recognize that Mercury's in the shadow of the retrograde, and that after September 12th, you should be able to straighten things out in a manner that's very helpful to you. So you can see it's going to be a wild couple of weeks with the population optimistic because they have hope. That's what I have observed. Very interesting, very interesting. And of course, as I mentioned, if I can pick it up here again. Yes. The sun is in the fourth house, which is the Republican Party, and there is a light shining there. And this can be very, very helpful rather than arguing and fighting, putting your attention on the sun, the giver of life, putting your attention on making yourselves great and getting help. And of course, the Democrats getting help. So that's what I've got to share with you. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this shakes out. And so I invite you to please join me next month. Let's see, Mercury is still going to be retrograde at the beginning of the month. So let me apologize in advance if it takes me a while to get this report out to you. It's not because I've left the country, it's because everything's still shaky from the retrograde. So till we meet again, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours. Bye for now.